This is Jamal Thomas of the Progressive Soapbox. First, Happy New Year's. It's almost for a few days, and 2017 will start, and 2016 will be put behind us. I think what people will notice from the past few days is I've applauded Obama on several things over the past few days. Everything from the UN resolution, allowing the UN resolution to condemn Israel's to allow Israel's settlement building. And mind you, settlement building is a euphemism for stealing private land. Yes, it's too little too late. Yes, he should have did it sooner. But he did it. And what John Kerry said was important, and it needed to be said. And so, yeah, he has my applause for that. Second, I applauded his trying to protect federal lands. Again, it's a mixed bag, but at the very least, he's trying. I mean, he went as far as using a constitutional, it's like a legalese of sorts that will prevent the Trump administration from just unraveling what he did. And last, I applauded his easement at Standing Rock. So, for not approving the easement at Standing Rock. Yes, again, it's a too little too late situation. Yes, again, those people shouldn't have had to go through what they went through in the time it took Obama to kind of assert himself. But he did it. And that tells us of another interesting point. Yes, Princeton is right. America is an oligarchy. But it does respond to sustained political focus of a group, particularly when the attention of the country is essentially focused on a particular element, as it was in Standing Rock. It leads me to believe that whatever missed hopes or missed opportunities that we encountered in the Obama administration, to some degree belongs to us. If he was willing to change his stance on Standing Rock, then he might have been willing to change his stance on a lot of things. And I honestly believe that if it was not for focused attention on Standing Rock, that company would be on that land right now as we speak. But today is not one of those days, which is why I have my sad face Obama up. So today was the height of ridiculousness. Obama comes out and he sanctions Russia over the quote-unquote election meddling. In addition to him coming out and providing sanctions, I believe it was the FBI, NSA, essentially the departments of the government that said Russia had something to do with it, bought out, released their information. They released their findings. Essentially, they're releasing what they deem as being the smoking gun evidence that Russia has something to do with it. So I have two conclusions about this. And depending upon who you are, those conclusions can be somewhat controversial. And to be honest, they would even be somewhat contradictory, but I'll make my case. So Obama came out and said, all Americans should be alarmed by Russia's actions, the president said in a statement. So the sanctions are going to do a few things. In addition to hitting 2 Russian intelligence agencies, 3 companies and 4 individual intelligence officers with sanctions banning them from travel and business with the United States companies or individual, Obama ordered 35 Russian operatives posted at diplomatic facilities in Washington and San Francisco to leave. The president asked the State Department to bar Russians from entering 2 Russian-owned compounds in Maryland and New York that were used to gather intelligence, according to the statement. And Obama's Treasury Department barred U.S. business with 2 Russians accused of cyber theft of money and of data. I gotta be honest, this is absolutely absurd. So, in one case, and here's my 2 positions. Did Russia have something to do with the hacking? And look, I looked at the FBI's evidence. I looked this document through and through, and I gotta be honest, I did not see a smoking gun. I didn't even see evidence per se. I saw assertions. I saw the FBI or NSA essentially saying Russia has something to do with it. Ultimately, trust us. And in this case, believe it or not, I actually do. I actually believe that Russia has something to do with it. And my reasoning for believing this is ironic and weird, and yet it's true nonetheless. Part of my reason for the belief is Snowden. Essentially, the guy that they're trying to lock up and put in prison for the rest of his life is, in a weird way, given a certain amount of credibility to the claims of the NSA. This is from The Intercept. Now, a never before published top-secret document provided by a whistleblower, Edward Snowden, suggests the NSA has a way of collecting evidence of Russian hacks, because the agency tracked a similar hack before in a case of a prominent Russian journalist. So the story essentially, it deviates from the point a little bit, but it makes the point that there was a woman who was suspected of being assassinated. It was an American citizen who was suspected of being murdered by the Kremlin. They couldn't prove it. But what the NSA knew because the NSA was spying on everybody. So Edward Snowden, it's the weirdest thing. Like, so in a weird, it's very strange, but the NSA is essentially saying, yes, Russia hacked into our email accounts. We know this because we're spying on everybody's account. What's particularly interesting here is the provenance of NSA claims. The section is classified TSSI, meaning Top Secret Signals Intelligence, the interception of signals as they pass from one point to another, including anything from tapped phone calls to monitor internet traffic. That is to say, the NSA knew Russia hacked Provolsky's account, Provolskaya, I'm sorry, I'm just destroying that woman's name, because the NSA was spying. Thanks to Snowden revelations, we know there are many powerful overlapping government spy programs that could allow the NSA to observe communications as they unfold. Like I said, I call it somewhat ironic because in their spying on us and everybody else, they caught Russia spying. This is weird and bizarre, and yet it's true nonetheless. But again, even if I take it that it's more likely than not true that Russia has something to do with it, does that mean that you jump to automatic sanctions? No! You do not! Look, do you believe that we have issues at home that we need to take care of? And second, it's not why she lost! Hillary Clinton lost because she was a horrible candidate. It had nothing to do with Russia. God damn it, man. I want to scream that from the rooftops. Because ultimately, a lot of this came from this idea of the Democrats not wanting to own up to, hey, we have problems. And we don't want to address these problems. Instead, we want to point to everybody else except for the actual person who's responsible. The Democratic Party. But okay, well, whatever. So how about this? Obama, are there things that we can deal with here before pointing the finger abroad? And I would say yes. So I think it's weird that of all the things to scream about, Democrats are not screaming about African Americans, the most loyal voting base, being thrown off the rolls. They're not screaming about hackable voting machines that are essentially black boxes, meaning you vote and you have no idea who you voted for, or no idea to check that in some of the machines. They don't have anything to say about the exit polls not lining up to the actual poll results, which again is weird. The people essentially went in, they made their vote, they came out, they told the people who they voted for. They should line up. Oftentimes they don't. They're not yelling about the Electoral College, which is stunning, since over the past 20 years, it seems like it's only been good for electing Republicans. Also, they're not screaming about the conflict of interest of parties being in charge of the machinery of elections. Again, some of this seems like shooting fish in a barrel, as it's so egregious and it's so in your face. But again, Obama doesn't do anything for it. And look, let's unpack some of this, because to be honest, that's quite much to unpack. So, the first thing, let's talk about gerrymandering. So gerrymandering is when a group redraws a district. The idea is that you're redrawing the district because, maybe there's population growth, maybe there's other factors involved. But Republicans have been redrawing districts in ridiculous ways. So if you notice, what is that? And why is that considered a district? Well, for that matter, what is this? And why is that considered a district? Those things look weird because they are weird. And those things are done for one reason: to keep Republicans in office. There's a reason why Democrats routinely get more votes in the House of Representatives, but at the end of the day, the House of Representatives doesn't change. It's because these guys have gerrymandered themselves into their districts. These districts are drawn and look odd like this because they're done to get a particular constituency that will typically vote Republican. That's why. It has nothing to do with legitimacy, it has nothing to do with what's right. At the end of the day, these things are done in order to keep those guys in office. But again, that's too tough. And Republicans hit back. Alright, fair enough. So let's talk about voter suppression. Republicans are yelling from rooftops about voter fraud. Voter fraud, voter fraud, voter fraud. It's all over, it's ubiquitous, it's everywhere. Voter fraud. While fraud can occur, a number of cases is very small, and the type of voter IDs are designed to prevent voter impersonation at the ballot box is virtually non-existent. This is from a PBS report. News 21, a reporting project affiliated with the Arizona State University, in 2012 found 2,068 cases of election fraud nationwide since 2000. Of those, just 10 involved voter impersonation, or 1 out of 15 million prospective voters. So 1 out of 15 million voters, in-person voter fraud. And based on their rationale, they're willing to disenfranchise hundreds of thousands of voters in states all across the United States. And look, there's a method to the madness. So this gentleman, Paul Weyrich. Paul Weyrich is one of the Republican brain trusts. And Weyrich makes an interesting argument.
Goo-goo syndrome. Good government. They want everybody to vote. I don't want everybody to vote. Elections are not won by a majority of people. They never have been from the beginning of our country, and they are not now. As a matter of fact, our leverage in the elections quite candidly goes up, and the voting populace goes down.
So the argument that Weyrich was making, I gotta be honest, it's detestable, but he's right. So the leverage of Republicans in elections goes up the less number of people show up at the polls. The reason for this is because Republican voters tend to be pretty rabid. And I'm not saying it in a bad way, I just mean they tend to be persistent in getting to the polls. So whatever hurdles you put up, these guys tend to not have anything better to do than to go to the polls. Many of them are older. And ultimately, when you have a suppressed turnout, it adversely affects the Democratic Party. So let's keep going. So not only is there not voter fraud, not only do these guys intentionally try to suppress the vote, they know what they're doing. This is Representative Grothman from Wisconsin.
You know that a lot of Republicans since 1984 in the presidential races have not been able to win in Wisconsin. Why would it be any different for Ted Cruz or a Donald Trump?
Well, I think Hillary Clinton is about the weakest candidate the Democrats have ever put up, and now we have photo ID, and I think photo ID is going to make a little bit of a difference as well.
But if Ted Cruz is the guy...
Newsman. Newsman. So the guy's having a conversation. The newsman is talking to a politician, and he says, yeah, we think we're going to win Wisconsin because we have voter IDs. And Hillary Clinton is the weakest candidate the Democrats ever put up. So I think we have a good chance. And the newsman goes on to the next question. Dude, what the hell should voter ID have anything to do with it? Because they know. They know that the voter IDs adversely affect certain demographics of people. They're doing it because it affects certain demographics of people. What about cross-check? So cross-check is a program that would allow Republican states to essentially nix people off the voter rolls. It disproportionately affects people with certain names. So a name like Chan, well, that tends to be Asian. A name with the last name of Jackson, well, that tends to be African American. Rodriguez, that tends to be Hispanic. So there's an over sampling size of those groups, even though we make up a very small part of the population of this country. And they would nix those people off the rolls. I think it said something like 1 out of every 7 African Americans showed up on that list or something like that. But what it amounted to was a large number of people being nixed off the rolls. Law-abiding citizens, they go in to vote. Oh, I'm sorry, sir, you are not on the list. You can use this provisional ballot that would not be used and will probably be thrown out. Greg Palast, an investigative reporter, went to, I think it was it Wisconsin? He essentially was trying to uncover, well, wait a minute. Why are all these abnormalities in the polls or in the votes? So, in talking to one of the representatives at the state, he spoke with Michigan Secretary of State, and they told him that the purpose was to clean our voter lists and ensure that there's no vulnerabilities for fraud. Well, so he says, all right, can you give me some cases of fraud that I can, compare it against? And the person could not. We're so good at eliminating fraud, we eliminate fraud that doesn't even exist yet. And they're right, they're eliminating fraud that doesn't exist yet because fraud doesn't exist. Again, Obama, if you want to go slay dragons abroad, what about slaying some at home? Look, these guys are in your country. You have the bully pulpit and you have the Justice Department. And I understand that they ripped the Voting Rights Act limb to limb. But come on, man. It seems like before you get to Russia, before you get to claiming that another government has something to do with affecting the election, hey, how about deal with things that actually do affect the election? Michigan, Wisconsin, Florida were very thin margins in regards to how they won that vote. You don't think voter suppression, you don't think eliminating people from the rolls, you don't think Wisconsin purging voter rolls or shutting down voting precincts in certain areas? And, we should also remember, shutting down precincts increases the amount of time that people have to stand in lines. And if you're working in a service job, which most people are, you cannot stand to spend 3-4 hours in a line. Not to mention, the studies have shown that it decreases turnout because people just don't want to spend all their time in a line to vote. Obama, come on! Alright. Again, I guess that's too hard. Republicans hit back. So, what about something you can do something about? So, back in, this man is named John Ehrlichman. He was an operative, or essentially worked for the Nixon administration. He was in the Nixon administration during the time of the drug war. So, in a very frank interview, he makes the statement, you want to know what this was really about? The Nixon campaign in 1968 and the Nixon White House after had two enemies, the anti-war left and black people. You understand what I'm saying? We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or black, but by getting the public to associate with the hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt both of those communities. We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did. The drug war was based on a pretense that would allow them to lock up blacks and the anti-war left, both of which were against the Nixon administration, and both of which the Nixon administration was concerned was going to join. To this day, we're still locking people up for drugs, and we're still locking people up for pot. And this guy came out saying it was a hoax. We're doing it for political reasons. Obama, you could come out tomorrow and you can change the scheduling of marijuana, and you can put a veto to let all those people who've been locked up for pot out of prison. And guess what? I almost can guarantee you that the majority of those people would have probably voted Democrat. Felons lose their voting rights, meaning that in addition to Nixon being able to cripple those people politically, well, he was also able to cripple them politically for the years to come, because those people can no longer vote. In some cases, there is no process for the people to get their rights to vote back. For example, in Florida, Florida is just one of 3 states that permanently disenfranchise anyone with a felony conviction. The state has no automatic process for former felons to regain their voting rights. Instead, people have to travel to the state capital and proactively request that the governor grant them clemency on an individual basis. Obama, you can deal with this tomorrow. This is something that is what's on your plate. I get that Republicans hit back, but there is nobody to hit you back on this. You may take a political hit, but what do you care? You're leaving office in 3 weeks. And at the very least, what you can do is benefit Democrats in the future and benefit the lives of these people right now. But again, that's probably too difficult for Obama to do. So, all right. I know it's difficult, so let's find something that's a little bit more palatable. In fact, I think we're probably back at Russia. So if we're back at Russia, at the very least, let's temper our critiques with context. So let's talk about a few things. In this case, the CIA. So back in the 60s, the CIA was in the policy of regime change, meaning toppling governments and putting in strong men in order to take over those governments. Granted, it's not hacking, but it is kicking over somebody's government and putting in people who are going to hurt other people. That's us. We tried to assassinate Fidel Castro 600 times. And what's wild, the CIA released a report. I mean, it wasn't the CIA. The CIA tried to overthrow... where is it? The CIA tried to overthrow Egypt, Congo, several countries in South America, Syria, and Iraq. And look, I'll take the critique. In fact, I'll critique myself. Jamal, come on, man, that's not fair. That was in the 60s. Alright, what about Iraq? We invaded a country, spent nearly $6 trillion, and killed upwards of 1 million people. Now, you can make the case that that wasn't under Obama's term. And that case would be fair, but we're one country. So even if it wasn't necessarily under Obama's term, at the very least, it was us. We killed upwards of 1 million people. Alright, but I'll take that critique. Jamal, come on, man, that's not fair. That was George Bush. Alright, fair enough. Fair enough. So, what about Libya? Libya was under Obama. Libya at this moment is a failed state. And up until even today, Democrats have been saying that we thought Gaddafi was going to murder a lot of people. So instead, we decided to go in and murder a lot of people. Or at the very least, create the pretense for a lot of people to get murdered. In fact, even the narrative that they're coming up with seems a little dicey. Evidence is now in that Barack Obama grossly exaggerated the humanitarian threat to justify military action in Libya. The president claimed that intervention was necessary to prevent a bloodbath in Benghazi, Libya's second largest city and the last rebel stronghold. But Human Rights Watch has released data on Misrata, the next biggest city in Libya, and the scene of protracted fighting, revealing that Muammar Gaddafi is not deliberately massacring civilians, but rather narrowly targeting the armed rebels who was fighting against his government. This is the Boston Globe, and this was released in 2014, I believe. No, 2011, I'm sorry. Libya was regime change. It wasn't hacking, but Libya is a failed state right now. There should be no doubt about that. And that was under Obama. Alright, and let's keep on with that. So, in addition to Libya, the United States, under Obama, has been engaged in shadow wars all throughout the world. Somalia is just now on the list. But this is dealing with I think it's 7 countries. The Somalia campaign is a blueprint for warfare that Obama has embraced and will pass along to his successor. It is a model the United States now employs across the Middle East and North Africa, from Syria to Libya, despite the president's stated aversion to American quote-unquote boots on the ground in the world's war zone. This year alone, the United States has carried out airstrikes in 7 countries and conducted special operations, missions, and many more. This is the New York Times. Do you believe that the United States intervening in those countries in no way adversely affects the governments of those countries? And again, you are killing a lot of people. I don't understand why it's so difficult to look inward as opposed to the first thing being to look outward. And it's difficult to look at the behavior of the United States. Yes, we weren't hacking. Actually, we were hacking. But yes, we're not getting hit for hacking. But we have killed a lot of people. And whether you want to call that hacking into election or not is besides the point. We have killed a lot of people. Putin, or Russia, maybe has something to do with hacking emails and exposing the honest truth of the Democratic candidate. Now, you may not like that, but that's a far cry from kicking over democracy and killing a lot of people. Look, I keep saying that Russia is not why she lost. And it's not that I have this thing where I'm okay with Russia attacking our elections. In fact, far from it. But the point I'm making is, we have things at home that we can deal with before we ever get to the point of looking at Russia. And if we solidify our own elections and make those elections more democratic, I am less concerned with what Russia does at that point. I mean, look, we can chest thump all we want. But at the end of the day, Trump comes in office in 3 weeks. And he is going to rip this up on day one. So, if you want to do something positive, attack the things at home that's going to adversely affect the population. This thing with Russia is absolutely ridiculous. I'm going to end it here. Guys, feel free to subscribe if you like the content, or hit the like button if you like the content. Thanks everyone. Have a good one.